everyone. If you can hear me in the auditorium, can you clap your hands? Yes, okay. Maybe our call will let everyone know in the comments to go ahead and come on in. My name is Holly Wise. I might be a new face for some of you. So just a quick introduction. I am the chair of the Council PTA's DEI committee, and I'm the organizer of this event and really excited to bring us all together this evening. We have a lovely lineup of student performers and a special guest for you this evening. I would like to welcome Kathy Powers, our superintendent of the school district, on stage. Thank you. I appreciate Kathy's support so much in bringing this event to you all again, and I'm going to allow her to welcome you all to this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Weiss. I hope that you can join me in a round of applause for Mrs. Weiss, who put this entire event together. Of course, she has her committee, and it's the Twinsburg Council PTA's Diversity and Equity Inclusion Committee. But there's always a leader, and this year it's Mrs. Weiss, and we certainly do appreciate her efforts in bringing this program back again for the second year in a row, I believe. I also want to recognize members of our Board of Education who are in the audience tonight. First, Mrs. Maria Hamilton, please rise to the next. And Mrs. Rhonda Crawford is somewhere. I know I saw her. Maybe she's still outside. And then finally, former Board of Education member, Mr. Mark Curtis is here. Mark, thank you for being here tonight. And I hope I have not missed any other members of our Board of Education this evening. I just wanted to say that, you know, we turn the calendar to February, and we think that February is a really important month, being Black History Month. But what I have to tell you, it is not just a one-month celebration. It should be a part of the fabric of who we are, not just for 29 days of the year, as this year is a leap year, but for every day of the year. And here in the Twinsburg City School District, we are very proud of the programs in place that celebrate and help our kids and our staff members feel a sense of belonging and inclusion here in the district. One of the things that we have in place is our Twinsburg City School District Equity Steering Committee. And you know, the work is never done, because when you feel like you're finished, that means you haven't even started. And so as part of the work underway through our district strategic plan, our Equity Steering Committee has been hard at work looking at the way in which inclusion and belonging and empathy is a part and parcel of all that we do here in our school district. We have a long way to go. We're not perfect, but we are on a journey, and part of that journey is celebrating with you this evening. So on behalf of our Board of Education, I thank you for spending our evening with us tonight. I thank you for all that you do to support our students. I thank our Twinsburg Council PTA for their continued support, and we look forward to a really great program this evening. Thank you.
So now I am thrilled to hand over the mic and the evening to Aiden Booker. Aiden is a 12th grader here at Twinsburg High School, and he is not imaginary. He is here. So Aiden, you can come on out. So I am really glad to hand over the mic to Aiden and to let him guide us through this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss. I'm trying to find my parents in the crowd. Oh, thank you. How's everyone doing tonight? My name is Aiden Booker. I'm a senior at Twinsburg High School, and I'm so honored to be emceeing this event tonight. Now, to start us off, Kellen Gilmore will be singing the Black National Anthem. Kellen is an 8th grader at RBC. She's a member of RBC Singers and Twinsburg Community Theater. Her first performance for the district was when she sang the national anthem for her older sister and the Lady Tigers for their senior night. The lyrics are on the back of your program. Please stand and join Kellen.
But I hope that the presence has brought us, facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
That was good. Next up, Twinsburg High School's Black History Club has a couple of spoken words to share with you all.
Black History Month is a month where the entire nation and internationally people celebrate all the diasporas of Africa, and they celebrate all of the things that Black people have done for the country. And I feel like there should be a Black History Year because Black people have done so much for this country and still continue to do more. And we still have yet to have all of the rights and, you know, all of the things that a regular human being should have still to this day. But we will still fight and we will still recognize those who have fought in Black history.
I get to learn things about how my people were and how they progressed throughout life and what their history was.
Black History Month means to me celebrating Black culture through art, history, dance, and the freedoms that their ancestors wished for them.
It means being able to fully celebrate the Black American experience.
Very important. You know, we're underprivileged, underrepresented, especially like in education and whatnot. So anytime that, you know, I talk to somebody of minority, African American, I always encourage them.
Just celebrating with other people who know my background and just being able to share my culture with other people, it really just means togetherness for me. It just means being happy for who I am and just seeing myself in the true light.
Black History Month means to me is to celebrate the African Americans that paved the way for other African Americans now to have equal rights as other people.
To me, Black History Month is an opportunity for different people to learn about culture, for us to be able to express how far we've come since just like having more freedoms, having more opportunities, just being able to participate in more learning and yeah.
To you. Black History Month means to me being able to express my people and my culture.
Black history to me is the celebration of African American history that was actually suppressed for so long. So now living in a time where we can celebrate that and draw attention to the things that were kept quiet for so long is what Black history means to me. And going along with that, just encouraging the acceptance of all people, Black, white, any other group.
Black History Month means to me celebrating the importance of the people that came before us and learning about them is like sort of giving them justice for things that they have to do.
So happy Black History Month, everybody.
Hi everyone. So the word Black History Month are echoed over and over throughout the month of February. But what does Black History Month truly mean, and why is it so celebrated? Originally, Black History Month started out as Negro History Week, first announced in February of 1926, a week that blossomed through the thought of a man named Carter G. Woodson. Woodson was the son of a newly freed slave and the second African American to have graduated with a PhD in history from Harvard University. He believed that Black children were not being taught enough about their heritage and created the week to encourage African Americans to learn about their heritage and history.
Often people ask, why is Black History Month celebrated in the shortest month of the entire year? However, Woodson didn't intend for it to be this way. He thought a week in February would be a good time because it contained President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass' birthday. So you might be wondering, how did Negro History Week change into Black History Month? Well, the week became such a success that Woodson felt like it needed more time. The Civil Rights and Black Power movement advocated for a official shift from a week to a month in the year of 1976. Once Negro History Week turned into Black History Month, the leaders kept the week in the same month in the previous period.
If you ask anyone what Black History Month means to them, each person will surely have a different answer. Still, many people will answer that Black History Month means celebrating African American history after a time when that history was so dismissed. Not only just the physical history, but celebrating a group of people who experienced a vast amount of struggle together as one. Yes, the shackles of slavery are gone, yet African Americans don't have the true feeling of freedom in today's society, being held back in different ways. Many of the struggles we've seen in the past have been engraved in Black communities and making it hard for many to escape. And because of this, it is so important to celebrate and encourage African Americans to believe that they can reach farther than they ever thought of. It's especially better to highlight the ones that haven't been recognized before, looking back at the past and celebrating the accomplishments then and now. So what does Black history mean to us? Well, the video you just watched was a couple of students and staff answering this question. And as you watched, I hope you thought about what Black History Month means to you. Thank you.
Next up, we have Niles Anderson. Niles is a fifth grader at Dodge Intermediate School who enjoys all aspects of the creative arts. His passion is being on stage to share his creativity with his audience. Niles has been dancing for 9 years and looks forward to being on Twinsburg show choir team and a member of the Black History Club in Blue Mountains. He'll be performing a dance solo to Icon by Jaden Smith and wants to thank his dance instructor, Miss Chandler Lewis. Give it up for Niles.
Thank you.
So that was not Icon by Jaden Smith. Did y'all see those moves though? We're making Black History Month. Next up, we have Rose Kadiri, a fourth grader at Dodge, reading the poem, The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gordon. Give it up for Rose.
Mr. President and Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President and Mr. Emhoff, Americans in the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending struggle? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We brave the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself beside everyone. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine. But that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose. We compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must put first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That will forever be tied together, victorious. But not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in the bridges we've made that is promised way, the hill we climb. If only we dare, it's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how to repair it. We've been a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it. We would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of redemption we feared at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while we ask, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our incantation and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generations. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left with. Every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will rise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-winded hills of the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. In every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there's always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it.
This is a fourth grader, y'all. She read all of it. 1 second to put the stand up. Next up, we have some more dancing from Anaya Jones, a sophomore at THS. She's a cheerleader, Blue Diamond member, and Tigerette. Her future goal is to be accepted to Kent State University in their architectural program and become a Golden Flash. Praise dancers use their bodies to help express the Word of God and is considered by many churches to be an acceptable form of Christianity. Please give it up for Anaya Jones.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, we're gonna start moving towards that separating line.
Y'all having fun tonight? Next up, we have Leonce Satterway. She's a kindergartner at Wilcox in Miss Moore's class. She loves to sing, dance, and embrace her creativity through art, and is a daisy in Girl Scouts. She's smart, witty, and takes pride in her ability to properly pronounce new words she learns. Leonce will be reading Harlem by Langston Beach. Give it up for Leonce!
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or does it fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or does it crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode?
Next up, we have Violet Kadiri, a second grader at Bissell. She'll be showcasing native Nigerian and West African fashions from Nigeria. Give it up for Violet.
Bugya, that means hello in Uname. Uname is a tribal language my dad grew up speaking in Edo State, Nigeria. We are going to show you handmade native Nigerian fashions. Families will use same fabric. Families will use the Bugya, that means hello in Uname. Uname is a tribal language that my dad grew up speaking. Edo State, where we are going to show you handmade native Nigerian fashion. Families will use the same fabric to make several matching outfits to wear at weddings, funerals, and holiday events. Men wear robes and loose trousers, while women wear dresses such as abayas with headscarves wrapped in colorful designs. Our models are walking into popular songs, Last by Nigerian artist Burna Boy. Nigerian has over 300 languages. These lyrics are a mix of native Pidgin and Yoruba. Make Una enjoy the show.
Last, now everybody go to our breakfast.
I felt like I had to change to a proper tie. 1 second. Got the clipboard. Next up, we have an African dance by Miss Richardson's physical fitness and dance class. Twinsburg High School's PE department offers a dance and fitness class. Students study modern and jazz dance throughout the school year. African dance is the origin of jazz dance. Please enjoy this choreography created by Miss Richardson's dance students. Next up, we have Nat King Cole's Love by Gabriel Jones. Gabriel Jones is a senior student at our high school. He has a leadership position in both Twinsburg's Cultural Appreciation Club and Environmental Club. Gabriel is also a dedicated member of Twinsburg's award-winning show choir, Great Expectations, and loves to perform. Gabe's personal message is, I'm proud to represent my culture and pay homage to the legendary Nat King Cole. Please give it up for Gabriel Jones.
Extraordinary is
Two of us can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Alright, here's our good news, you guys. Oh, you guys look beautiful tonight. I'm happy to be with all my brothers and sisters. Oh my, you guys are wonderful. Keep that going for me, please. All right. I'll this for the way you look at me. Oh, it's for the only one I see. This is very, very extraordinary. It's for more than anyone that you adore. And love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two of us can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Love was made for me and you. Oh, love was made for me and you. Thank you guys very much.
Let's give it up again for Gabriel Jones. For our last performance, we have Wade in the Water by Joseph Rebecca, Joshua, Roseanne, Grace, Jeremiah, and Ruby Joy Farrell. Joining us now from multiple grades across the district is the Farrell family. They will sing Wade in the Water. For our last performance, the Twinsburg Council PTA and the school's PTA are proud to introduce our evening's guest speaker, Dr. Jalil Mustafa Bishop. Bishop is a class of 2010 alumni from Twinsburg City Schools. While in Twinsburg, he was class president from 8th to 12th grade, 4-time All-Ohio and state finalist in track and field, and co-founder of the African American Achievement Club. His family has deep roots in Twinsburg, with over 30 relatives being alumni of the school district. He attended Dartmouth College with a Bachelor of Arts in History focused on Black justice movements in education. While at Dartmouth, he ran Division I track and field, was president of the Afro-American Society, and studied abroad in 14 countries across Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America. After graduating college, he enrolled at UCLA to earn his PhD in education, where his dissertation focused on the history and experiences of Black people in Twinsburg Heights and Twinsburg schools. His dissertation is the only robust history written on Twinsburg Heights. His career and jobs have all focused on being an anti-racist advocate. He was a vice provost fellow and lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania and an assistant professor of education at Villanova University. In 2021, he founded his own research nonprofit called Equity Research Cooperative to focus on education justice, where he currently leads a team of full-time activists and has secured over $13 million to study and grant making. He has published dozens of journal articles, blogs, and reports, consulted on presidential campaigns, and provided congressional testimony. He is a national expert sought out on issues of student debt, cancellation, pipelines to college, anti-racism, and activism. After Dr. Bishop's presentation this evening, we will have a Q&A. If you have a question for Dr. Bishop to consider, please write it down on the provided note card. We will gather those. Please come up to the mic as well. And without further ado, welcome back to Twinsburg, Dr. Bishop.
I feel great being back in Twinsburg. I get opportunities to speak about education in my work all over the country and have not had the chance to come back and speak to Twinsburg with this audience. So just want to give thank you and gratitude to the PTA, to the Twinsburg School District for inviting me back. I spent, give myself a little more room. I spent earlier today talking to some of the students in 7th and 8th grade, some of the high school students, and had a chance to share some of my journey and experience, but also had a chance to hear a little bit about what's going on in Twinsburg today and some of their experiences. So this is a welcome home experience for me to just have the opportunity to speak with you all. I have my family in the audience who, are big supporters and advocates for me. I have many teachers and former staff in Twinsburg who are here today who were big supporters of me. So again, this is a homecoming and just again, a lot of gratitude. Next, I want to give just another applause for all the performers and speakers. We heard from students across the grade level, so that was an amazing introduction for us. And I want to use the next 10 to 15 minutes just to share a little bit about my journey and to share what I titled today, Finding Value in Protest. So I think that we all are familiar with protests. We all have seen it on TV. We have seen it spread across the country around issues from climate change to racial justice and so on. And a part of what I want us to talk about is how can we understand protests both in that traditional sense, a march, a rally, chanting, but how can we also understand protests as something that's connected to what we personally do? Understand protests as something that's connected to the long tradition and history of Black culture, of why we have a Black History Month, where you're protesting not just in a collective with marches and coalitions and organizations, but you're also protesting to define your own value. You're protesting to push back against some of the labels or descriptions that folks are putting on you that may not fit who you know yourself to be and may not fit the history and the legacy, if you come from Black culture, that you have been taught about who you are. So a part of this presentation is really to focus on how do you find your value in protest. So just to give a quick overview again of my journey, as you all heard in the bio that was read, that I came through Twinsburg in the class of 2010, that while I was an amazing student towards the end of my time in Twinsburg, I had a journey here. that as I went from up until about 7th grade, I was a student who understood what it meant to be in the principal's office. I was a student who understood what it meant to have some learning differences from having to do additional reading classes and speech therapy. I was a student who understood what it meant to be from Twinsburg Heights and sometimes come to the Twinsburg School District and not always feel that same value or that same treatment that I felt back home in my home place of Twinsburg Heights. And a part of my journey is understanding how Twinsburg shaped all these different steps and milestones that I hit as I moved through my life, from college to earning my PhD, which focused on Twinsburg and writing the history of Twinsburg Heights, to understanding as a college professor how I approached myself, how I approached my classroom and my students and my research. And then becoming a policy advocate where, as you heard in my bio, I've been able to work on issues around student debt cancellation and provide congressional testimony around not just how do we solve policy issues, but how do we make sure that racial justice is at the center. And now I run a nonprofit. So a part of understanding my journey, a part of understanding some of the success and some of the experiences for me is understanding how I came to find value through protest. So as I said, when I was coming up through school, we used to have pink slips. Up until about 8th grade, I had many pink slips for, nothing major, but things like talking back, things like not listening to teachers. And this was a comment that they used to write on my pink slips all the time: insubordination. And this word means that you're not listening, basically, that you're not following authority. And I got this comment all the time. I got lunch detentions. We used to call it ALE, which was like an in-school suspension. And this word insubordination sometimes was because I was being a class clown, because I was a troublemaker. But as I look back and reflect on this now at 32, I think this insubordination also was because I was trying to push back against moments where I may not felt like I was being treated fairly. I may have felt like a teacher had assumptions about who I was or what I was capable of doing based on maybe a past action or a past experience. So some of this insubordination for me was also some of the roots of how I got to what I now describe myself as a career and a lifetime of being a protester who has participated in those traditional marches and those traditional chants, but also a protester who has worked really hard to define and find my value as a Black person, not only coming through Twinsburg schools, but also a Black person who's had to navigate many spaces where there's not always many of us, but also many spaces where I'm constantly trying to advocate for the experiences and the opportunities and the equality of Black people. So when I think about what protest means to me, and I think about the young Jalil getting sent to the office, or the young Jalil doing his first protest at Chamberlain, the Jalil protesting on his college campus, a lot of what protest means to me is trying to assert over and over again, if it's on a personal level or collective level, that I am worthy as a Black student, that I'm worthy as a Black man, that I'm worthy as someone who comes from a working class family, that all of protest really for me comes down to this core idea of showing your worth, but not showing it to say I need to fit into current definitions or current spaces, but sometimes protest is saying, I'm showing my worth and I want you to set me on my own terms, by my own definitions, my own value. So I want to share with you some of the lessons I think I learned while I was in Twinsburg about protesting. I didn't have this language back then. Sometimes it might have just been called talking back. Sometimes it might have just been called not listening. But I think I can reflect back now and say some of this really was about me trying to push back and assert my value and assert my worth. And I think the lessons I've learned, I put them in kind of 3 categories, is that there's another value that is possible, that you can't do it alone, and that if you are successful, if you are the only winner, then that's not success. So a part of understanding this other value is possible for me really comes back to where I'm from, Twinsburg Heights. And I like to sometimes think of Twinsburg Heights as this 100-year protest that's been going on in Twinsburg. And I call it the 100-year protest because Twinsburg Heights has existed now for almost 100 years. And when I did my dissertation on Twinsburg, when I was going through the articles and the history of Twinsburg Heights, you saw headline after headline going all the way back from the 1930s up until about the 1980s saying that Twinsburg Heights wouldn't make it another decade, that it wouldn't be here another year, that it was a community that didn't have the infrastructure and the resources and that it may not survive. And I think that those articles gave a very clear message how folks outside of Twinsburg Heights understood the community that I would eventually grow up in. That it was a community that didn't have resources, but really a community and people in the community that weren't often treated with value. But growing up in this community that kind of defied those odds, that it didn't die off, it didn't die away, as some of those headlines suggested, I call that the 100-year protest. Because if you think about it, Twinsburg Heights, it was formed in the 1920s. It was formed in a time in this country where it was very hard for black people to own land or own a home, at least up north. It was formed in a community that I show here on this map, that when Twinsburg used to be a unified town, that in the 1950s when Chrysler plant came, here next to kind of this dotted area that is Twinsburg Heights, that's when the Chrysler plant came, that's when Twinsburg Village, or what would become Twinsburg City, split off from Twinsburg Heights. So what that means is that Twinsburg Village became the predominantly white area of Twinsburg, and Twinsburg Township became Twinsburg Heights plus some farmland that was a little further out. But what's important to understand here about what I call this 100-year protest, this protest that was constantly black people in Twinsburg asserting their value, is that when Chrysler came, it changed Twinsburg. It turned it into the city that we all know today. But even though Chrysler was this close to Twinsburg Heights did not experience much of that investment, much of those resources. That these black lines that are running through the map are water lines that shows that when the Chrysler plant came, it brought modern infrastructure in the 50s to Twinsburg. And even though these water lines ran directly through Twinsburg Heights, residents were not able to access these lines until the 1970s. This was a part of why many of these articles said Twinsburg Heights won't make it, Twinsburg Heights won't be here another decade. So that 100-year protest is a black neighborhood where people own their own land, their own houses, and they did their own organizing to assert and find their value in a Twinsburg to not only figure out how to eventually tap into these pipes and plumbing and modern infrastructure, but also how to keep a community alive where black people have value and black people are able to be a home place. A community that I was born into and also learned that same value. A community that even when I came into Twinsburg City Schools, and sometimes people saw the Heights as dangerous or a place not to go to, because I grew up in that community and was affirmed in that community, I had a different view, a different value of myself. So I think of this as a 100-year protest that also was a part of my early understanding of value and how to protest and assert my value. You can't do it alone. So I always tell folks that one of my first protests was in 7th grade, and it was when I was in 7th grade, I used to be in choir, and I had two friends named Jeff and Josh, and we all were in choir. Some of my family knows Jeff, and we were all in choir, and we used to have paper ball fights all the time in choir. We had paper ball fights so much that the teacher used to come in and just write J on the board to see who was going to be, and if she wrote your whole name out, you had to leave the classroom. So it was either going to be Jeff, Josh, or Jalil. But one day in choir, we had a student who, when arguing with one of my friends, she called my friend's mom a racial slur, and this was a white student. So it was a big commotion. We all got sent to the office, and the student was given a lunch detention for calling my friend's mom a racial slur. Now, as a student who got in trouble sometimes, I knew a lunch detention was for a paper ball fight. I didn't think it was for calling someone a racial slur. That didn't seem fair to me. It didn't seem equal. So my first protest in 7th grade was going home and writing that on a poster board. A white student called my friend's mom a racial slur, and she only got lunch detention. And I took a shoelace from my shoe and used that to tie the poster board around my neck when I came to school in 7th grade. That was my first protest. The principal came, snatched the poster board off my neck, and made me sit in the office until I promised to go back to class and let it go. So it wasn't that successful of a protest, but it was one of those first moments where I remember figuring out my voice and finding my voice. But it also was a lesson that in protest and asserting your value and trying to find your value both as a collective if you're in a march or if you're trying to do it individually around worth, that you can't go it alone. That for me, the difference between 7th grade and 8th grade for me was having black educators. I had my first black principal named Belinda Scott, maybe Belinda McKinney for some of you who may know her now. I had my first black guidance counselor, Monica Wallace. And these were people who were able to make sense of these big feelings and experiences that I was having as a student in Twinsburg. And not having them just, and not just affirming me, but also acknowledging that some of those experiences, because I'm a black student, that some of these experiences are connected to some of the past stigmas or things I've faced as a student. So they affirmed me and gave me a space to start to think about, well, what else can I do in this space? So in 8th grade, it was the first time I became class president. It was the first time I got straight A's. It was the first time that I was able to start to see this transition from the Jalil who got in trouble sometimes, the Jalil who got okay grades, to now I'm starting to be viewed as this high achieving student, but also a student who many teachers know me, prior to that. So it was this transition time in my life, and having black educators were key to me figuring out that I can't go at this alone. I also have family that they can tell you from a young age, I was often thinking outside the box, often trying to understand justice issues and mistreatment, but also trying to really find my voice. And my family, no matter how wild some of the ideas I may have come up with over the years, always created a lot of space for me to understand how to protest, how to use my voice, how to advocate for myself. My peers, a part of what I try to explain to people is that when we are trying to understand how some students become high achieving, how some students make it through gifted classes, AP honors, that you can't just look at that student and hard work, because at least for me, that wasn't enough. When I was in high school, we started an African American Achievement Club. What was important about that club was not just me sharing with students success or ideas of achievement, but it was for those students to also validate some of us who may have been in that AP class and were the one black student. I think through most of my AP gifted classes, I was the only student from Twinsburg Heights in those courses. So when I got to go to African American Achievement Club, it was a place where we got to share value, we got to affirm each other. It was a place where if I had white students in the AP classes maybe tell me I didn't belong there because I didn't start in 4th grade when they did, I got to go to African American Achievement Club or got to go to the lunchroom with my black peers and get that affirmation, because to them, they viewed me as smart, as capable, as valuable, and that being a part of the protest. So again, a key piece here is that you can't go at it alone. So for me, in understanding protest, in the last piece here, is you aren't successful if you are the only winner. So and what I mean by this is that a lot of times when we think of Black History Month, we celebrate the one person who's in a space. If that's the Oprah, if that's the Muhammad Ali, if that's the person who made this achievement in athletics, this achievement in the corporate world, this achievement in politics, we're often celebrating the one winner who has made it in that space. And that's inspirational, it's important. It's important to acknowledge that. But when we're thinking about Black history, it also has to be an acknowledgement that protest and justice and legacy is also about what we are doing for the collective, what we're doing for each other. So I shared this picture here. This is my friend Brandon, and this was the person who started African American Achievement Club with me. And when I say that, a part of understanding my success is not just my hard work, is not just my focus, but it's also understanding the people around me who affirm me, the people around me who created space that when I was hearing, Jalil, maybe you're not good enough, or maybe you don't belong in this space, or maybe you're not prepared to be in this space, it was my peers, like my friend Brandon, who affirmed me, helped me start this African American Achievement Club, and helped me understand that I'm very much worthy and very much have value. So while we were starting African American Achievement Club to have a space for black males to come together, I also like to think of it now as a space where we were having some of that protest that led to us understanding our black space of value. And Brandon is still one of my best friends today. I'm the godfather of his daughter, so just thinking about the affirmation that started back then in high school that has carried on for us all the way till today. So I like to, share my journey and share kind of this aspect of protest so that we can go back and think about these key milestones. That for me, being in Twinsburg and finding my voice to push back and to find my own value is where I kind of learned that in Twinsburg. I took that same energy to Dartmouth College, where I spent a lot of time, and I have a sister here who went to Dartmouth College with me too. We spent a lot of time protesting about what we call kind of a racist quota on campus, meaning that the black students who enrolled in Dartmouth in 1969 was 81 black students. When I graduated in 2014, it was 84 black students. So in all that time, we saw this low number of black students on campus, and we spent a lot of time trying to protest, trying to assert our value. When I got my PhD, I came back to study Twinsburg because, again, the roots of me understanding justice, understanding the black experience in education started here in Twinsburg. So my dissertation was on black students across decades and their experiences not only in Twinsburg Heights, but in the school district. When I became a college professor, I spent my time teaching future teachers, future adults who would come to work on college campuses, how to understand and care for black students, students of color, how to infuse anti-racism education and teaching methods into their work. When I became a policy advocate, one of the big things I started to work on was student debt cancellation, because I realized as I was going through my research on how to increase opportunity for Black students, one of the big barriers, at least on the college side, was student loans. So I started advocating for student debt cancellation in 2016, started doing research, started publishing reports, and then when it became a big policy issue, because I was already kind of working on this work, I was able to start working with presidential campaigns, delivering my testimony to Congress, because I started to do that work early on. And some of this work has led, my family will tell you I'm not always happy about what we have got so far. I want more cancellation, but I also have to acknowledge the win that we have had billions of dollars of cancellation. That when I first started this work, the idea of canceling student debt was a wild idea that people would laugh me out the room. Now I get to do this work and have real serious conversations where I get to help write some of the regulations of how we cancel debt. Thank you. So after doing this work, after understanding my experience in Twinsburg and turning it into a dissertation and my PhD, after doing this policy work at a national level, being able to teach in the classroom, I then went and started my own research organization. And what I wanted to do with this organization is pick the issues I cared about, the issues I wanted to work on, but I also wanted to create an organization that reflected the value that I felt like people should have in the workplace, people should have when they're trying to be advocates. So in my org, we call it an Equity Research Cooperative, because we're not just a company, we're not just a nonprofit. We're an organization that uses shared leadership and consensus building to advocate for not for the issues we care about, but also for how we care for each other. So we decide how much we're gonna pay each other together. We decide how much we're gonna do healthcare, retirement contributions together. But we also decide if we're gonna take on student debt issues, housing issues, and so forth. We do it together. So a part of this is also building an org that reflects, again, some of the value that I believe that we should have in society. And my org mainly is run and operated by people of color. So again, the lessons that I learned in Twinsburg have carried me through all these milestones in my life. If that's from understanding that another value is possible because I grew up in an affirming place that was Twinsburg Heights. If it was understanding that you can't do this alone, from the 7th grader with the shoelace poster around my neck to the adult who can lead a protest and be a part of a larger march, that you can't do it alone. You need solidarity, you need people who are going to advocate and affirm you. And then also understanding that success can't just be defined by the only winner, by the token who's in the room. It's important for us to define success by not just who beat the odds, but what work are we doing to change those odds, to make sure that more people are included in whatever we are considered winning. So I want to thank you all for taking time to listen to me. Like I said, it was a special moment to be able to come back and share a little bit about my journey, but also the seeds of how I've been able to find success and accomplish these milestones. Started right here in Twinsburg, right here in this high school in Chamberlain and so on. So if you scan this here with your cell phone, this will give you access to my dissertation, which is all on Twinsburg schools and Twinsburg Heights. And if you want to contact me, here's my email. And again, thank you all, and thank you to Twinsburg for having me back. So I think we're going to take time for a few questions. You can either come up to the podium, or if you feel like you can project enough, you can just do it from your seat. If we have any questions or comments, I think we can take a few before we wrap it up today. Yes.
How much of your, as a young Black man in Twinsburg, having been a parent of two daughters in Twinsburg, in the city, out here, how much of your protest became, I guess, out of you wanting to not assimilate, right, in the Twinsburg culture, because you didn't see a bunch of educators who look like you,
That was a good question. So the question was, how much of my protest came out of me not wanting to assimilate into Twinsburg, where I didn't necessarily have educators who looked like me? So I think if I understand the question correctly, I kind of want to answer that in two ways. That I think when I was younger, I didn't really even understand. I don't remember making a conscious choice of trying to not fit in or be on the outside of Twinsburg. It was just something that was made clear to me, particularly when it was these little subtle things that if someone knew I was from Twinsburg Heights, you might hear something, a little comment that said, oh, you from there? My parents told me never to go there. Oh, you're from there, that's this. I heard that XYZ goes on up there. So those little comments that sometimes let you know that you're outside of how these people are seeing value or understanding what's included or what's at the center. But I think another experience that helped me understand the importance of protest is that by all indicators, if you see my bio, I was successful as you could be as a student on athletics, on leadership, on grades, on all those pieces. And I remember when I got accepted into Dartmouth College, and I was getting recruited for track. So I had recruiters who came to the high school, and I got to see this big shift in a lot of particularly white educators. So what happened in that time was that I was getting recruited. One of the coaches happened to live in Youngstown, so he stopped at the school. And I remember the athletic director at that time kind of announcing it over the loudspeaker that Brown University was coming to recruit Jalil. And what that did is it sent a message out to everyone, and I didn't understand this at the time, but it sent a message out that Jalil was being recruited by Ivy League school. So before, I was this high-achieving black student that often was upheld as an example of, well, Jalil's doing it, you can do it too. Now when I got into this Ivy League school, I was often described as, well, you got in just because you were black, it's not because of your hard work. So I think those are those moments where you have to reflect and say, well, it's not about whether I assimilated or not, it was more about it being made clear that even if you're achieving or not achieving, that there's some messages, some stereotypes, and some biases that exist that can shape how a student understands themselves, can shape how they understand their value. And I think as parents, particularly parents in Twinsburg, it's important to think about that Twinsburg has a lot of great opportunities and experiences, but it's important to also think about the fact that if you have black students in the school, that they need advocates. They need people who are creating space for them to share their experiences wherever they are on the academic performance spectrum. Yep. Other questions, comments?
Yes, what has changed from 2010 to now, and what more needs to be done?
Great question. From 2010 to now. Well, so I got to go to Chamberlain today. I got to have a conversation with the principal at Dodge. I got to talk, at the high school. So I think one major piece that I told you that mattered to me was that when I got my first black principal, that was transformative for me. I was happy to see that the principal here at the high school is a black woman. I was happy to see the principal at Dodge is a black man. I think that creates space, no guarantees, but at least space for black students and students of color and other students who are on the margins to have a little bit more, to have some thought, intentional thought about their experiences. I think that while I can't speak to everything that has changed here now, what I'm also interested in is that when I came back to talk to the high school students, they seem like they have more clubs and initiatives and activities going on that at least even acknowledge differences. We didn't always have those things. I think back then had maybe gospel choir and then the African American Achievement Club. So to see multiple activities where a student, they were sharing with me clubs that's focused on black writers. They were sharing with me the Minority Student Union. To have ongoing activities where they can find their leadership and their voices seem like positive improvements. But I would say, while I can't say whether or not these things have changed, things I would still have questions about, what's going on around how students get access to gifted classes. When I was in school, it started in 4th grade, and those students became the same exact students who were in AP and honors. And I think what we call that in education, we call that tracking. It's something that happens all over the country. I have no idea if tracking still goes on in Twinsburg, but as a parent, that would be something I would be being conscious around, of how do we identify which students get access to these courses. And then thinking about discipline. One thing that showed up in my dissertation when I pulled the U.S. Department of Education data on Twinsburg schools, one of the big things is around discipline. From the preschool all the way up to the high school, you see that black students make up the vast majority of suspensions and expulsions. I haven't pulled this data since 2018, but again, that would be an area that I would be curious about, of how are we handling discipline, and are we still seeing that overrepresentation of black students when it comes down to punishment? Yep. Miss Spring, my 4th grade teacher.
Well, I don't think we ever sent you an ALE, but always when we have comments, and I've kept in touch with you for a long time, I was like, it's worth reading your dissertation. It's long, but it's great. And make sure you watch them testify before Elizabeth Warren about who got cancellation. Yeah. So I'm curious, are you involved in the presidential race this year?
Well, I am not a candidate, just to make that clear. So I would say that while I won't be directly involved in the race, but what so as I said, we have had a lot of student debt cancellation that's happened so far. I am a person who is for full debt cancellation. So I do spend a lot of time still meeting with the U.S. Department of Ed, meeting with the Biden administration's Domestic Policy Council, trying to figure out / fighting with them about how much debt should be canceled. And so I imagine that's going to be a big campaign issue. It's something that many voters care about right now on both sides, whether they think debt should be canceled or not canceled. It's a big issue. I imagine that as we get closer to the campaign, if it's Biden and whoever on the Republican side, it's going to be something that we're going to be engaging in more and more. So, you know, I have my team getting the research and new data and new arguments ready because we're anticipating that being a big issue throughout the election. And we're doing everything we can to fight for full debt cancellation. Now, whether we win that is, you know, we will see. But what's important is that along the way, we know that more and more people are getting debt cancellation from people who work in public service, if that's teachers and nurses. We know that more people are getting access to benefits that they need, particularly if they are working class people carrying too much student debt that's becoming a burden. And we know that through this fight, that increasingly we move from a conversation, like I said, where student debt cancellation wasn't used anywhere in the political space, and now you have a White House, while they haven't canceled as much as we would like, they are using those words, they are using that framing, and they understand that it's an important issue to voters. So we'll be involved, but you won't see my name on the ballot. So maybe one more question, and then we will wrap it up. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lauren Crawford. I'm on the school board. I just want to address the two comments you have made. Just while we have people in the room, the concerns that you had about gifted and then the other things about behavior discipline, I will say those are issues that we still do have in our district, but with Ms. Powers, as you mentioned, we did recently form an equity committee, which myself and Maria Hamilton, she's also on the board with me, we're on that committee, and we are definitely looking into those issues, and we're trying to look at what we can do to move forward and change that. That's why I didn't want to address that.
No, I think that's important, and I think just to make it clear to folks who may not fully understand tracking. So like I said, I was able to enter the gifted courses in 8th and 9th grade. It was very hard to do. If I didn't have parents who were strong advocates, I wouldn't have gotten to those courses. Because what happens in 4th grade, sometimes through a test or sometimes just from parents who know kind of that hidden curriculum, they advocate for their students to be in those courses. Those same students, whether they are the brightest, not the brightest, the highest grades, whatever it may be, they tend to be the same exact students who take the AP and honor courses. Why that's important is that AP and honor courses, the gifted classes, determine often what type of colleges you can get access to, what type of financial aid you can get access to, and it determines a lot of your preparation for college as well. Now, I already listed off all the things I was able to achieve, but again, without parents advocating for me, it would have been very hard for me to get into those classes in 9th grade. And even when I got into those classes in 9th grade, it was still a battle, because now I'm in classes with students who have been together since 4th grade. I'm now in a class with students who, one thing about gifted, they always keep the students in math about a year ahead. So now I'm playing catch up the whole time I'm going through high school. You know, I would even tell you, by the time we got to calculus in high school, I was always a year behind in math because I joined honors in high school. So I was a year behind because they've been doing gifted since 4th grade. So when I got to the calculus class, I struggled through it so much. And at this point, I already know I'm going to Dartmouth, and I'm like, okay, I'm about to get a D in calculus. I went to my teacher and I said, look, I can't get a D in calculus. Dartmouth told me I can't get anything lower than C. What can I do? And I can't remember this teacher's name, but she told me my church is having a donation drive. If you bring me some books, I'll bring you up to a C. So I went home and grabbed every single book I could grab, and that's how I got through calculus. But what's important about that is that it wasn't that I was bad at math. I had, a part of why I switched to honors math is because I had 100% in regular math every single year. But when I joined gifted math, I was now a year behind because they were a year ahead each year leading up to that moment. So those choices matter because while I was able to push through that, while I was able to have a teacher who let me turn those books in, that could have been a moment where Dartmouth saw a D on my transcript. And now I don't know if this would have happened, but technically they could have rescinded the offer. So that's why the tracking piece for me is important, because it's not that every student needs to be in gifted classes, but every student and every parent should have the opportunity at gifted classes. So I want to thank you all again for the great questions. And I'll hang around a little bit if anybody wants to talk and just have a little one-on-one. So thank you. And I believe our host is coming back up. Thank you, man. Great job.
Let's give another round of applause for Dr. Bishop. Now, we have a special thanks to our PTA and heartfelt gratitude to the participants, Twinsburg Superintendent Kathy Powers, the Board of Education staff, our event volunteers, vendors, community members, and the Twinsburg faculty and staff who made this event possible. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, how about this tonight? How the performers did tonight. Well, thank you all for coming. We had a great show, and we just made Black history.